Perfect. So again, hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Bias, Working with Disabilities. We in Student Employment Services have partnered with our teammates in Workability 3 and wanted to put together a panel of professionals sharing with you the good, the bad, and the bias that exists in the world of work. Our department isn't just about connecting you with job opportunities, but it is equally committed to help our students grapple with the ways in which our identities intertwine with what we do and how we work. We support Southwestern College students on their path to finding meaningful, rewarding, and safe work. And to that end, we're committed to constant learning, comprehensive service, active advocacy, supportive coaching, and affirmative hiring. Our office recognizes that our students identify with many diverse populations, and these unique parts of us are not compartmentalized or shut off when we apply for jobs or show up to work. Our diverse backgrounds present unique considerations for our career and work-related decisions. And, according to numerous business experts and countless scholars, diversity is critical for an organization's ability to innovate and adapt in a fast-changing environment. Diversity of perspectives, experiences, cultures, they all breed success. So to that end, why are only 17.9% of persons with disabilities employed in 2020? And why don't we see more individuals with disabilities working in the workforce? And so we are going to spend some time today really talking with our panelists and really looking to identify, honor you and identify the barriers that may exist for you in your job search and even while you're performing in the workplace. But what we do hope that you take from this session is not just that barriers exist, but you have the ability to strategize, react, and address and overcome these obstacles because of the advice given by our panel today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Nomini, who is our panel moderator today. Jenny, all yours.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm Jenny Nomini. I'm the coordinator of the Workability 3 program, and I have had the pleasure of working closely with everybody that you see on the panel here today. So I'm going to have the panel introduce themselves. So I'm going down the screen of how I see everybody. So Sean, you're my first one. If you would like to please introduce yourself and your job title and a little bit about you, that would be great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Fiala. I work with and for Jenny Nomini at the Workability 3 program here at Southwestern. I'm also a non-credit instructor as well. I teach classes on employment for students with disabilities. So I'm a native of San Diego, also a graduate of San Diego State University twice, and I hold a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling. So part of my story is I have a disability as well. And so going back earlier in my life, I had some major health problems, and I had to negotiate that with the help of counselors. And I myself was a client of the Department of Rehabilitation, which you're going to learn about if you don't know about it already. I myself was a student at the community college when I first started out. So I had DSS counselors or DSPS counselors. So I've been on the other side of that table, and that's part of my journey to today. And so that is a little bit about myself.
Awesome, thank you. How about Jonathan? Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, everyone. Can you guys see me? Yeah. So hi. So my name is Jonathan de Guzman. I'm with Department of Rehabilitation. I'm one of their rehabilitation counselors. And my disability is bilateral amputee, so with all 10 fingers and both feet. So I wear prosthetic legs to be independent. I did, like Sean, go to Southwestern College. I went to Southwestern College and transferred to SDSU, got my master's, and I'm graduated and now working for Department of Rehab. I'm one of their new student services QRPs.
Awesome, thank you. And for individuals that are interested as well of getting connected with student services at Southwestern College, you most likely will work with Jonathan in the near future. Awesome, thank you. Kale, how about yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cale Heath. I'm a management and program assistant for the Internal Revenue Service, and I have worked with both Jenny and Sean over the past few years, and they have gotten me into the position that I'm in now, and I owe them a lot of thanks for that. I do have a couple of disabilities. I have frontal lobe syndrome, which is basically a planning disorder. This was of the result of me being born about 3 months premature, and I had a lot of health problems like Sean whenever I was born, and thus I was given that disability. And then I also have high functioning autism, and I'm on the autism spectrum, and so I do have some issues with just getting easily overwhelmed with things sometimes, and sometimes just staying concentrated. But I'm grateful to be in a job that allows me to perform at my best with my disabilities, and especially with this pandemic. And I'm a graduate of California State University, Chico. I also went to Southwestern College, and while I was there, I had DSS counselors, and I was even a test proctor for DSS for about a year or so whenever I graduated from Chico State. I have a bachelor's degree in English, and I currently work for the Internal Revenue Service, where I'm a management and program assistant in the Privacy, Governmental Liaison, and Disclosure Division, which, if you all don't know what that is, it's basically the privacy department. We're responsible for keeping taxpayer information safe and confidential and making sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So thank you, Jenny.
Awesome, thank you, absolutely. Mr. Rusty, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rusty. Originally from South Jersey. I went to school in Bangor, Maine. Got my bachelor's degree in business. Left there and went back to Jersey. Due to some circumstances, I just said I wanted to go to California. I came out here to California, and this was many moons ago. And the system, there's a lot of biases in the systems that, you talk about why there's such a high level of unemployment and stuff. It's there's institutional biases, and there's attitudinal biases, and all those things that really make it difficult for those with disabilities to get into the workforce. But it was even more so in the 80s, where you're trying to transition with benefits and stuff like that. So I floundered around a long time, just going to community college, being a part of, I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to do something. I tried to apply for work that wasn't successful at it. So community college was a landing place I went to until I found they put me on a hiring committee, and I saw that they were hiring this DSPS counselor, and job description, I saw it, and I says, I think I could do that. And after that, I went on to San Diego State, received my master's like a lot of you here. And then from there, I did some internships, and then I worked for nonprofit. And there I worked my way up through the community college history. So presently, I'm a vocational specialist in Workability 3. So it's part of my journey. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Mr. Alejandro.
Hello, everyone. Pretty much like all of us, went to Southwestern, transferred out of there, and then went to San Diego State. Got my bachelor's in psychology, and then got my master's in rehabilitation counseling. Funny, we pretty much Sean, Jonathan, and I attended classes all together. Did my internship. I did my internship for Department of Rehabilitation for a year, so pretty much I've worked for free Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. But luckily it paid off, and now I've been working there as a full-time rehab counselor, working with adults and also with high school students through the TPP program.
Awesome.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to have share a little bit about what got us into the field, interested in the field that we're in. So let's go with Kale. What If you can tell us a little bit about what got you interested first in your bachelor's degree in English, and then what had you interested in pursuing employment with the IRS and the division that you're in.
Thank you, Jenny. So I have my bachelor's degree in English really because of my mother. My mother was a big influence in my life, and she's the one who got me into writing. She used to write a lot of children's stories whenever I was a kid, and she actually did manuscripts for those stories. Unfortunately, since we've moved around so many times, those manuscripts have been lost. But it was her that really pushed me to be a better writer and a better communicator. And I've always had just that strong suit within me to be a writer. I have a poetry blog. I have a fiction and nonfiction blog as well that I update. I haven't updated them in quite a few years now, but whenever I was a student and writing things for my creative writing classes, I would post on those blogs. And so English has just always been, a strong suit of mine. It's always been important for me to be able to communicate with other people. And in the classes that I took whenever I was going to the university and even Southwestern College, I learned to better talk with other people, better communicate, better get my ideas across in a way that people will understand and that's concise and that's very much to the point. And I'm also involved in Toastmasters. That also did a lot of help for me in just learning to speak in public, learning to be comfortable among crowds and all kinds of things. And I'm sorry, Jenny, what was the other question you asked?
How you found yourself working in the field that you're working in now.
Well, I actually, if you want to be technical, I kind of got into the Internal Revenue Service by mistake. If you would have told me about 5-6 years ago that I would be working for the government, I would have looked at you like, really? Like, I don't see myself working for the government. I never thought I would be working for the government, but one day, whenever I was just thinking of things that I could do, I was with Sean at the time and I was in his office and we were going through different job opportunities and I had applied to different jobs. And I thought in my head, just randomly, I think I'd like to work for the government. And one of the things that kind of, prompted that in my mind was that my grandfather was in the Coast Guard. I have an uncle that was in the military. So at the time, I wanted to work for the military because, I didn't want to join the military. I didn't feel comfortable really with going into the armed forces or anything, but I wanted to work on the civilian side. And so that prompted me to have a discussion with Sean about getting me into the government. And from there, I was able to get into an internship program that led me to my first government position, which was working for the Navy in downtown San Diego and working with Naval Facilities and Engineering Command.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. How about Rusty? Want to share a bit about how you got into this field?
Yeah, sure. Originally my first plan, and which I've had probably about 100 of them, was to own because this was in many moons ago, and it was to own my own video store. My parents have said, let's develop a plan of you working at a video store, and we'll go from there. And so I went to school to get my degree in business. I had some background in accounting, business management, and finance, and all that. But unfortunately, there were some circumstances that diverted that plan. I ended up in California. I went down to the Department of Rehab, matter of fact, with my business degree. I told them I needed a job, and they says, I told them I had this degree. I even showed it to them. They said, how'd you get it? I says, Department of Rehab helped me with it. They says, well, we paid for it. Now you go get a job, which I thought was pretty, to be honest with you, it took me about 20 years later to figure out that was correct. They were giving me some good advice. I just didn't know how to go about that. and because it was like talking Japanese, because I really didn't have a perception of work or how to work or get work. So unfortunately, I floundered around in the community college district, trying to find my way. And I was fortunate enough to be on a hiring committee at Grossmont College for a DSPS counselor. And that's how I pretty much got my way into this deal. From there, I worked my way through, it's funny because someone said about, like Kale said about luck, I think a lot of this stuff is luck. You just keep moving forward and doors open up. And I was doing, working for the San Diego Housing Commission. And then I left there and I did end up being an outreach coordinator. I had no plan to be an outreach coordinator, but it was just what was available. It's what I had qualifications for. I got that. So it's a progression of growing and developing my resume, my skills, my network. And through that, I ended up at the San Diego Community College District. So it didn't take long after I got on track, but it was just finding that right niche that I could do. I didn't have that vision of what could I do. It's sometimes when you have a disability, you take a look at job application or announcements, they're overwhelming. They want you to sing and dance and all that stuff. And I knew I couldn't do a lot of those things. And to be honest with you, the labor market's a lot smaller for someone who has physical disabilities. It's even smaller for people who have hidden disabilities. So the niches that you find that one occupation or a few occupations that you can do, and then start pursuing those and build on those things. That's how I found out it worked for me. So.
Great, thanks. Let's ask one more person that same question. I'm looking at our questions in our time here. Sean, would you want to share how your path brought you here?
Wow. Well, first of all, even like I mentioned earlier that I, had some pretty serious health problems in my 20s. I almost passed away. I was in a hospital for 6 months. I had to learn to walk again. A lot, went through a lot. But even prior to that, as a child in my teen years, I was a caregiver for my mother who had a disability. And so that became part of who I was and part of my story. And so as I went along and as I was caring for my mother and I was going to school, I was recovering from this illness, all those things were kind of coalescing together. And during that time, again, as I mentioned, I was a client of the Department of Rehab. I was getting counseling. My goal at the time was to become an attorney. And so I wanted to be a paralegal to get into the legal profession. And I was, kind of focused on that path for a while. And then my mom passed away. And that was kind of around the time when I finished up my undergraduate education at San Diego State. And at that point in time, I was like, okay, Sean, you have a lot of the freedom and the time that you've wanted for so long. Now what? So I thought about going to law school. But then I ultimately kind of like had a self-reflection, a come to Jesus moment of like, what has my life been about to this point? And I realized that I needed to go with what my strengths were. And that was in having a heart to help other people. That I would just go above and beyond the call of duty for other people. And I just wanted to use my story because I felt like I had a unique perspective of being on the other side of that table, having been a student with a disability in the community college, at the university, having been a DOR client, having been the recipient of all of these services. I felt like being a counselor on the other side, I could relate to the students that I would work with, and I've truly found that to be the case. And just to comment really quick before we go to someone else, to touch on something that Rusty said about luck, is one of my professors in grad school, and I'm sure some of you will remember this, and you know who this is. They talked about this concept of planned happenstance. And the thing is, like, there's a lot of things that do happen in our lives that are, quote, lucky. But what we have to do is we have to prepare ourselves for those opportunities, for that luck. And so we can't always get 100% guarantees about what's going to happen in the future, but we can prepare ourselves for when those opportunities are there, and then we're ready to take advantage of them.
Awesome. Great points. Nice. Okay, so I'm thinking that we should probably move to our next question. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about to share with our students, and perhaps some of our students that are joining us today may be experiencing some of the challenges with finding work with a disability, and the idea of whether or not to disclose a disability, and the pros and cons perhaps of that. So wanting to get some advice. So let's go with Alejandro. Any ideas to share regarding disclosure?
In regards to this, and well, let me take a step back real quick. I forgot to mention that my disability, and going with disclosing my disability is visible. It's not hidden because it's a physical disability. So pretty much I'm paralyzed from the chest down, and I use a power wheelchair. So obviously, as soon as I walk through the door for an interview or whatever, you can see my disability. So in regards to disclosing, for me, obviously, I didn't have to disclose because mine's visible. But I do recommend clients, if they do, or if they're thinking about disclosing, I always tell them to disclose only if they would need accommodations, or they think that the job description or the job that they're doing might not be done unless they need an accommodation. So that's what I was recommending in regards to accommodations. For those who don't know, there's all kinds of accommodations out there. I myself need accommodations, and most people think just because the word of accommodation is thrown out there that it's going to be something very expensive or whatever. And to a certain point, yes to that question. I mean, yes, but there's also accommodations or assistive technology that's very low end and very inexpensive. I have accommodations at work that I kind of thought about on my own, and it costs $5 or $10. But again, it goes both ways. And I always tell my clients also that if you're thinking about accommodations, start doing your research. So when the time comes and you do need, or your employer asks what kind of accommodations you need, you already have your list good to go, and it saves time. So.
Great, thank you. I want to bounce back to Kale regarding disclosure of disability, and get your take on it.
Well, in a lot of the jobs that I've been in, I have definitely have come out to my boss and have told them that, hey, you know, I do have a disability. This is what my disability is, and give like a brief synopsis of it. And then I would say, piggybacking on what Alejandra said, that it's important to request accommodations if you're going to need them. But two, I think it also kind of depends on the job. I've had some jobs where I've not needed any accommodations. Like in my current job, I don't really need accommodations that much. In the previous job I was in, I was working in customer service, and I needed a little bit extra time on whenever I would put a taxpayer on hold and go and do my research and try to find out like why they owe what they owe, or where their credit is coming from, or that sort of thing. I used to work in automated collection systems, which is basically the collection division of the IRS, and we call people who have small businesses or who are self-employed about their tax debt. But I would need some extra time in that job to do some research, and I asked for that, and they were able to grant that to me on the basis that I do have a disability, and that going back to my disabilities, I also have a processing disorder. So I do process things very much slowly than the average person a lot of times, and so it's hard for me to just quickly think on my feet. Especially in like a high dynamic situation like I've been involved in with all the customer service jobs I've been in. So I would say that it's very important definitely to tell your employer that you have a disability. I haven't really said it during the interview. A couple of times though I did say it, and that hasn't really affected me not getting the job. There tends to be this bias that you shouldn't really tell people in interviews that you have a disability, and really, I don't think employers should really look at a disability as a hindrance for someone getting a job. I think they should look at it as an asset, because in quite a few of the jobs I'm in, I have to be very meticulous with my work, particularly in my last job. And so I was able really to think about my disabilities, and a lot of times without really even saying in the interview that I have a disability, I was able to say, this is what I can do. These are the strengths that I have. These are the challenges that I have, but this is what I'm doing to overcome those challenges. So really, I think it's really just about honesty. But I also think at the same time, you know, you just have to consider different factors, and really whether you're comfortable with telling your employer that you have a disability, because it's really your decision, and you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But if it's going to cause you to, you know, not do so well in your job, then you're going to have to say something, I feel. So
Awesome. Great answer, Kale. Well done. Yeah, wonderful. So that kind of leads me to that next question too. And I'm gonna kind of gear this towards Jonathan. Is, you know, we encourage our students to not look at their disabilities as challenges, but also assets in the workplace. So how have you done this throughout your career, and or encourage your clients to do so?
So when especially from my experience, because I obtained my disability in my early 20s. So I got sick with meningitis when I was 21. So in a way, it was kind of like starting over. For me, I had to kind of establish my identity as a person with a disability and know that it's part of me. It's part of what drives me. It's part of, you know, my journey. And so when I realized that my disability was going to be a challenge, I started owning it and saying, okay, what are my accommodations that I need? What am I capable of doing, and how can I use my environment to really just be as productive as any able-bodied individual? So I learned how to just really tap into my environment and kind of use equipment around me, but also it is kind of a trial and error, you know, especially when you're learning about your disability, you will drop things or you will get frustrated, but it's all about just trying. And then when you realize you have a method to how you live your life, it becomes second nature. When it comes to the job, I had to learn how to kind of adapt to the work environment that I was in and use the skills that I had, especially for my disability, to say, okay, what can I do to make it just as fast as everybody else? You know, when it comes to doing the paperwork or processing information. It was really all about learning what my job skills were, and then kind of learning how to adapt to my skill set into, okay, how can I do it the same way with the same result, but differently? So it was a trial and error. It was a lot of trial and error. And especially for a person with a disability, I had to really kind of accept the fact that it's okay to make mistakes, you know, especially for myself to really be 10 times as good as an able-bodied individual to do the same work, because I have a functioning limitation. So, and for me, it was always just that kind of athletic kind of mindset of just like, you got to do it as 10 times as better as everybody else, because you have a visible disability, and you're going to have to prove to yourself, you know, that you can do the same exact job. And it made me it challenged me, but also it made me mindful of like, okay, there are things that I'll make mistakes on, just accept the mistakes, learn from it, and then try again. It's all about trial and error for me. And throughout the years, I've gotten better and better on how I process everything. And it's important, just don't be afraid of mistakes, because the mistakes that we make, they're a learning lesson for all of us to really just propel forward and learn about the job. And it's okay. And it's okay to ask questions too, to feel like you want to be better at what you're doing. And that's the most important aspect.
Great, thank you. Sean, how about for you? Same question.
For me, because of the nature of the health problems that I had, it was, by definition, like a hidden disability. And mainly just affected my energy levels. Early on, I was on chemotherapy medications and things like that, because the illness that I had was an autoimmune condition, so I had to take immunosuppressant medication. So it was just a matter of like not having a lot of energy at the beginning of my journey, my academic journey. And so the accommodation, I would say, for me would have just been, taking time, just taking a few classes at a time. That was like the main, accommodation for me. And I just had this drive, like, no matter what is hitting me, no matter what I'm facing, I'm just going to keep going and keep moving forward, no matter what comes at me. I'm going to just keep moving forward until I reach my goals. And so I've just, even though the future was uncertain, I just had this faith and this belief in myself that I could accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, even though I didn't know when, I didn't know what it would look like, but I just believed in myself. And I think that all of us can do that.
Great, awesome. Rusty, another question for you is, what recommendation do you have for our students? And it's kind of along the lines of our business thought leaders around how we can make a difference in changing the culture of the workplace to be more inclusive. But in terms of what can we do to be part of that solution?
The disabled community, or
Yeah.
when you say we?
We, yes, as to help businesses become more inclusive.
I'm a big advocate of awareness and talking to people and being out there. And personally, my disability is not who I am. It's part of who I am, and I try to relate to all people of all cultures, all socioeconomic backgrounds. So I'm just not in one area of my life. Like, I don't just hang out with people with disabilities, or I just don't talk about disabilities. So I think it's important that if anyone is, the hard part is most of my life I was identified with by my disability, but to get in the workforce, or to work with the normal work. I don't say that because that's abnormal. I would say the ordinary people, whatever, because that makes me extraordinary. But when you're out there working with ordinary people, it comes to what Kale said, about being honest. If you're just open with them and honest and stuff, people want to help. They want to be empathetic. That they're realistic. They have probably people that they know, but they don't. But this is what's always funny in our field. We come across people all the time with disabilities. But if you go out in the normal population, they're not dealing with people with disabilities all the time. So it's a little bit different. They're a little bit uncomfortable. So I always say part of my job is when I go on an interview is I have to do an icebreaker. I have to make them feel comfortable so we can get real here and start talking about stuff. And so it's basically bridging that gap between me and them, because it's not me and them, it's us. It's us. We're all in this together. So so I'm a big advocate of trying. When I do presentations, I always say the world of work is an able-bodied world. It's very able-bodied. There's very few disabled people, so you have to learn how to function in that world. And sometimes it can be intimidating. Sometimes when I went to work, I was scared. I thought people with able bodies were way more faster, better, superior, but once I got in there, I'm like, I'm not too far behind the curve here. So, I encourage you to get your foot in the door, and you'll find out what your strengths are. You'll find out where there's people there to help you too and guide you, mentor you. So it's a transition. It's hard for them, when they're not used to being around people. So part of your job is to, I don't want to go out and say enlighten them or educate them or whatever. That's not really your job. But there's a part of you that can be a part of that familiarity and belonging, and bring that, like, the diversity into the workforce. That is really a strength. It really is, and they'll know it will be too when you transition that, because you're just one of everyone now. You're part of a team. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it's a real tough one to transition. But if you want to get in the workforce, you're going to have to, like somebody said, be comfortable with your own self. The more comfortable you are with you, the more comfortable people are going to be around you. And the more comfortable they're around you, the more likely you're going to be able to transition into the workforce, because now they're not scared about anything. And part of that, workforce is it deals with taking risk, and they don't want to take risks they don't know about. They want, if you're comfortable with you and they're comfortable with you, then you have a good chance to get into the workforce.
Great. No, I think that that definitely answers it. And Rusty, I can attest to the fact that you are definitely the man of belonging. People just gravitate towards you. And Rusty's been a mentor of many of ours for many years. So I appreciate that. It kind of leads us into our next question too, about really wanting our students to be themselves and feel a part of the work that they're doing. And with that being said, many of our students receive some SSI or SSDI benefits, which sometimes creates that concern about entering that workplace. So Alejandro, I'm going to give this one to you. What type of advice or encouragement do you provide to your clients or students regarding entering the workplace while receiving SSI or SSDI?
Sure. Actually, to answer or give a little bit more information about that, I myself was also on SSI because, again, I got injured from a car crash when I was 17. So we applied for SSI, and I was receiving SSI. So I think it's, and don't quote me, but I think it's like what, I think 1% of people who receive SSI go off it, or 0.1, something like that. It's a very small number, but I wanted to be a part of that number because, again, I wanted to get off it. There's nothing wrong with being on it, but me myself, I wanted to get a good income to get off it and get better insurance and benefits and all that. Whenever when it comes to that, there's all kinds of resources out there to help you with the transition of going to work, and how much can I make before they start deducting, or how much can I make before my benefits start going away, or things like that. There's all kinds of incentives out there for people that are receiving SSI. At the Department of Rehab, we have a benefit specialist that, because, again, I just know the basic about Social Security. We do have a benefit specialist that we refer our clients to them, and they break it down and they let our clients know how much they can make before they start deducting, the incentives and all those things that are out there. If you're not a client of the Department of Rehab, there's also, I just draw a blank. There's a WIPA at, is it disability rates, that also can be referred to, and they can also go there and they can break it down for you to how much you can make and things like that when it comes to the benefits in the SSI and all those things. So
great. And Rusty, I'm going to add this one back to you. Same question of, what do you encourage our students that receive SSI and SSDI, and what types of resources do you suggest for them? Workability 3, Department of Rehab, DSS. So
I was heavily dependent on the system for years. And when I say heavily, I had it all. I had SSDI, I had Medicare, Medi-Cal, Section 8, And there was no way I was getting off that. And my reality was no way getting off that. But as I started going down this road, you know, getting a master's degree, then internship, then I started getting like part-time like work, and I started getting like a little income. Then I started getting a little confidence, and I started like going, instead of like eating top ramen every day, I was like eating pretty good, you know. And my life started, the quality of my life went up, you know, by just getting a part-time job and collecting SSDI. I call it double dipping, you know. Yeah, and that's what, and I thought I arrived. I thought that this, hey, I've hit the lottery. This is as good as it gets. But all of a sudden, I graduated from the program, and the internship I had let me go, and somebody told me it's time to get a job, and I went, whoa, 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 and I had what Sean had, that moment of clarity, like, what do I want to do with my life? Do I want to live poor and just on assistance, or do I want to do something different? And somehow, in some way, I made that leap of faith. And I don't know how, you know, I mean, I think it was just, you know, there was a lot of people that helped me over that bridge, but I transitioned and when I first got my job, it wasn't much more than I was making on assistance. Matter of fact, I was probably losing money. I used to always tell them, don't tell me how much I'm making because I'm gonna quit, right? Because, but what it did was it gave me the strength, it gave me the experience, it gave me the opportunity. And then from there, you know, it just snowballed. I mean, this thing, it was a matter of like just only 5 years before things really changed. And like now, you know, I have a retirement, I have insurance, I have benefits, I'm not on no SSI, I have no DI, no housing. I'm like, if they only knew, you know, they go, it's expensive to rehab somebody. You know what? Me being off the assistance, they're probably making like $50,000 a year because they're paying my rent, my medical, everything. You know, you just think about it. And plus my income. And now I'm paying back. I remember my first check at my work at the district was the same amount as my SSI, and I cried because I was giving back instead of taking. And it feels a lot better to be able to give back than it does take. And I know some of these have to be on there, and there should be no shame in it. But if you can find a way to get across that transition, your life will change immensely. Just not a little bit, immensely. You'll look back and go, what the heck happened? But it's a real. I always say there's a real fear though, you know, because once you get dependent on that, it's hard to break from it. But if you can, your life will change. And mine did, and a lot of people in this room has, you know. So.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And that kind of leads us, I know we want to start doing our Q&A, but one of the things that I wanted to share too is there are lots of services that we're able to share to help you with this process. As you heard from Alejandro and Jonathan about Department of Rehabilitation, and then also from Sean and Rusty and Kale from Workability 3. We are all here and all connected, and also connected with DSS services at Southwestern College. So there are lots of people here that want to support you through this process. So if you are on SSI or SSDI and want more information, we can do that too. So I know you're going to hear a little bit more about Workability 3 and the services that are able to be provided. So I'm going to turn it over to Genesis.
Oh, hello again. Are you guys seeing my screen? Yes,
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So as we transition over to opening up the floor to our audience questions, I wanted to ask the audience first to share with us what's one career tip that you gained from our panelists. They shared such a wealth of information in terms of looking at your disabilities as assets, really utilizing your services, and really their deep motivations to really integrate themselves into the world of work, and giving you their real life experiences. And so I want to take a moment, I would like you all to take a moment and drop it into the chat for us a little bit, just what's one career tip that you've gathered from our panelists today. Feel free to type that into the chat. And then if anyone has any questions, feel free to either raise your hand or type that into the chat as well, and we can make sure that we ask your question to the panelists. So we'll pause here for some uncomfortable silence. All right, and while we're doing that, Sean, would you mind sharing a little bit about the services of Workability 3?
Absolutely. So Jenny is our coordinator. I'm a vocational specialist with the Workability 3 program. And so if you're here, hopefully you are not one of the panelists, but if you're here just to learn about this this presentation today, hopefully you're interested in employment. And so one of the services here at Southwestern College, in addition to student employment services, which you're going to hear about shortly, is the Workability 3 program. So we are specifically a program for students with disabilities that also are clients of the Department of Rehabilitation. So you can contact us. Jenny and I will both put our email addresses in the chat before this presentation is over, so that you can contact us for more information. But just in general, just think about, I know for myself, I think I speak for all of the panelists too, that along our journey, all of us have benefited from having a counselor or multiple counselors along that journey. And so don't be an island. Think about how you can benefit from professionals' advice along the way. And so we are here at Workability to provide vocational counseling. So we can help you with your resume, with your cover letter. We can help you look for a job that aligns with your experience, with your interests. We can look at all those online resources, look with job leads with you, help you prepare for interviews. And then once you get a job, also helping you with retention, helping you to keep that job that you've worked so hard and invested so much time in. We can help you negotiate those issues about disclosure, about accommodations, all those things, and just comprehensive career exploration. So we are here for you, and we work, one-on-one. We're a team. We work with Genesis and Victor all the time. We're not competitors. We're a team, and so there's so much overlap between us, and so we're all here to help you reach your goals.
Thank you, Sean. I'm loving what I'm seeing here in the chat of all the lessons learned. I hope our panelists are able to see this too. Thank you, because I've been applying for just too many jobs and I always hesitate when I'm asked if I have a disability. We do have some questions, so I'll pose those as well. I learned to use my disability as an asset rather than a hindrance. Establish your identity as a person with a disability and own it. Be confident. My disability does not define me. This is awesome. Thank you all for your advice and your expertise. It's been a joy. I want to turn it over. Actually, before I turn it over to Victor, I hope you don't mind, Vic, I'm going to pose a question that's coming here in the chat from Simone. If you apply for a job and the employer knows they are hiring someone with a disability, are you required to tell them what that disability is? Anyone on the panel in particular who wants to take that question?
Want to repeat that one more time, please?
Sure. If you apply for a job and the employer knows they're hiring someone with a disability, are you required to tell them what that disability is?
No, you're not required, but if they're hiring for a disability, then it should be an asset because you're bringing that into the equation of the hiring. I worked for a nonprofit agency who had to hire 50% of their personnel had to be people with disabilities. So it would be more advantageous for you to disclose that than it would not be. But like, again, that's all, I don't know if that's required. If they put it in the announcement, that means they're looking for people with disabilities. They wouldn't place it in the announcement unless they were. So that means, that's a good thing. It's like they're trying to diversify their workforce. So, use it if you can, use that advantage.
Yeah, I'd like to add what Rusty said. You don't have to describe your disability. You can describe your accommodations for what you need, especially with what Rusty said. I mean, they've already initiated the pursuit of having to, have people with disabilities apply for their positions. So the most important thing is, what are your accommodations? What is it that will make you just as effective in the workforce, and especially for the team?
I think Simone added a clarifying question, is if even if it's not a physical disability, and I think you both addressed that. Thank you. As more questions come in, Victor, Victor Brown is our student employment specialist in our office. He is also a partner of Jenny and Sean and myself in helping our students in finding work. So Victor, do you want to jump in here and share a little bit about what we do?
Definitely. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here today. I want to thank the DSS office, Workability. I want to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing this wonderful information with our students. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. As Genesis mentioned, my name is Victor Brown. I'm a student employment specialist from our Student Employment Services Department. And Genesis and I work together to connect students to jobs and internships, as well as helps in career preparation as well. We cover help with resumes and cover letters. We do interview techniques. We go over those as well. Genesis is amazing. It helps with scholarships. I help with on and off campus employment. And we have our cooperative work experience education. And we even do the job fairs and other various services and events, such as this career panel today. We are here to be an asset, here to help you. I love what one of the panelists said, and letting others know that you're not alone. You are not alone. We are here to help you. You can reach us on Handshake and set up an appointment with us, or you can even email us. Again, many of you were checked in on Handshake, so many of you know a little bit about Handshake, but Handshake is an awesome resource as well to get jobs. And even as was mentioned, as Rusty mentioned, there are job opportunities where they do say we're looking for individuals with disabilities, so that we can diversify our workplace, as well as at the bottom, it says that we make sure that we do not discriminate against those that have disabilities as well. You might see that at the bottom of a lot of the job leads, because that's their efforts and that's what they're really pushing to do. So we're really here to help. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can send us an email at ses@swccd.edu. If you need help with career planning, job search, anything, as Sean said, we work with Sean as well. So we are here to help you. Thank you so much. And you can follow us on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. We got some great training videos as well on YouTube, and videos that will show you how to do various things like with resumes, LinkedIn, Handshake as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we're here to help and assist you.
So we have a few more minutes. So if you all have any more questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or unmute yourselves and feel free to ask your question. What I'm doing right now is just dropping something into the chat. It's a resource sheet that provides you some resources like Ask Jan, the accommodations directory, and things like that. So I'll drop that into the chat. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to unmute yourselves.
Hi, panel. I'm Simone. I'm actually here with my son, Bryce. And I do have a question because I didn't hear anybody speak about this. My son does have disabilities where he is a learning disability and autoimmune disability, but he also has epilepsy, and nobody actually mentioned that because he does have seizures. And how do you go about applying for a job and letting that employer know he has seizures and they're unpredictable? So, and he does have a little bit of memory loss. So how do you let your employer know what's going on so that they know, like, if he does black out or something, not completely have a grand mal, but just these little mini seizures, that it's not that he's not paying attention, it's just he's having these seizures without disclosing what your disability is. Anybody?
Hi, Simone. This is Sean. I just think you have to be honest, but you also have to think about what's appropriate for your son in terms of work, in light of the uncertainty, in light of the unpredictable nature of his seizures. you also have to think, about what type of job is appropriate for him, what would be safe, things like that. So that would be definitely a consideration.
Okay. Because is it hard finding a job for people who have epilepsy? Because none of you guys mentioned it, and that's my biggest concern, like trying to find a job to accommodate somebody who has seizures, and nobody mentioned it on the panel. So I was just wondering, is anybody familiar with that?
This is Jenny. I can speak to that too. Is with Workability, we have students with varying disabilities, and we do have students that have epilepsy. And I don't think there is unfortunately, an easy way to say like, oh, yes, it's easy, or no, it's not easy to get a position, since everything is so individualized. And I know that's not the answer that you want to hear, so to speak. But what we're able to do is really, again, look at the strengths of your son and what your son is able to provide, and really play off of the strengths. And then when discussing disclosure of disability, of how to do it, how to go about it, so that your son feels empowered and also utilizes it as a strength, and comes in with those ideas of what accommodations could be utilized, like Alejandro had mentioned.
Okay. I'll make an appointment to talk to Victor or somebody.
Yeah.
Does your
Yeah, I
son
was
attend
actually gonna-
Southwestern College?
Yeah, he goes to Southwestern College.
Great. Okay. So we're with Workability 3 as well. So we could also help you get connected with Department of Rehabilitation if you'd like to go that route as well, along with Workability 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I was going to mention it kind of is what Sean said, depending on the field. I do have a friend who works, but they do have seizures, and it can happen at any moment. And it really does depend on the field of interest. One thing what me and Genesis do is we really try and see what the student likes and what they're interested in going into. And we try and find not just jobs, but also see line up jobs with what they're interested in. But with seizures directly, it does depend on fields, such as if someone's a truck driver, or if they're in a field where they're with heavy machinery, or it might be something where it puts themselves at risk. It really just depends on the field that the student's interested and want to go into, because I do know people who fight with epilepsy, deal with seizures, yet they're still thriving.
Okay, no, he doesn't have a license. He can't drive.
Yeah.
And he's administrative justice. He wants to get into anything to do with law enforcement. But I told him, okay, you can't carry a gun, so that's out the problem. So we'll figure out something.
Yeah, and sometimes when they're dealing with these multiple disabilities and struggling trying to learn what they can do or not do, what the workforce is and stuff, they might need to carve out their own little niche, find their own little job in the world, instead of trying to think of the jobs that are out there, because some of those don't fit what he wants. They want this and that, and not sure. So you might want to start looking what is it that he really likes to do, and how can he do it? Can he work in security? All security don't carry guns. Some of them work night shifts, but he couldn't be independent, because if he has a seizure, then that causes a problem. But just think of little things like that, what he could do.
Okay.
That's a lifetime there.
Yeah.
I hate to jump in one more time, but interested in admin of justice, or even working with the police department, I've actually met with individuals from the police department who say that they actually want to hire individuals with disabilities, because even as was brought up, the specialization that comes with having a disability and then doing the additional work that's needed, sometimes they find that those with disabilities are actually they're more productive and efficient workers because of the specialization that they do. And the police departments, depending on, I know multiple departments that are actually looking to hire individuals with disabilities. But again, as was mentioned, it does depend on what area they want to go into.
Okay.
So it's not
That's
out
good
of the
to know.
question.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you for being an advocate for your son. That's important.
Oh, biggest advocate, always.
Yes. I love it. Well, with that, we're gonna, I don't see any more questions here in the chat, and we are well over our hour together. I wanted to take the time to again thank our panelists. Thank you all for being here. We look forward to partnering with you and helping you in your pursuits into the world of work. And if there's anything that we can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you again for your time. Thank you so much to our panelists. We are so grateful for your time and your expertise. And thank you all. Have a good afternoon.